Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Revolver Fan First podcast. I have a very special guest with me today to go deep on her history as a fan. That is Emma from Dying Wish. Welcome, Emma.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here. Now, we have the same question every week on the podcast, which is, who was the first artist you put on a pedestal?
Probably Gwen Stefani.
Yeah?
I grew up a big No Doubt fan because my mom always loved No Doubt. So I remember when Rocksteady came out in like probably 2000, 2001. We had it on CD and it was always playing in the car. And then she did her solo stuff when I was a little bit older that I also really loved because I'm a big fan of pop music as well. And so, and she's so iconic. I looked up to her a lot.
Yeah, she's a whole force. She was a force of energy.
Yeah, she really was. She was a whole package. She had it all.
And in a pretty blokey style of music as well. I mean, ska-ish music is pretty dude heavy.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I think, that was like part of her shtick was that, she knew that she would like maybe be sexualized a little bit in her role, but she like really owned it, I think, and made it very empowering.
Yeah, totally. Who was the first artist you saw yourself in?
Um, Probably Hayley Williams from Paramore.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, she's so emotional and like very vulnerable and like you can tell that she has just like kind of always really, had a lot of trials and tribulations and inner conflict that I thought really resonated with me, and she's always been a big advocate of mental health and is very transparent about that. And she's pretty inspirational. I would say that I know that our music sounds nothing like Paramore, but even her solo stuff too, I do try to like draw some influence from her like vulnerability and her touch on,
Yeah.
the things that she struggles with.
Well, she says a lot of deep stuff. What do you think, what's the song that you've made that's sort of probably the clearest reflection of your own experiences of mental health?
Well, Fragments of a Bitter Memory, the title track of our record, is huge for me. That song, I feel like it touches on the a lot of the reason and condition as to why suffer with, anxiety and depression now, some childhood trauma. And so I have always really wanted to tell that story. And I was waiting for the right moment, my whole life to kind of like express these things that I'd been through. And when I heard the instrumentals to that song, I was like, this is the moment for it. So.
Well, there's so much power in your lyrics with that music, like that metalcore, like chugging, like violent thing. It just the way your voice plays with it is really cool. I wonder how you got. I mean, you've talked a lot about like the ethics of hardcore, but how? And we'll get into that. But what made you fall in love with metal?
Just well, I do think that there's something really gritty and violent about metal in its own way that, hardcore is absolutely, kind of the epitome of gritty and violent in a lot of ways, but metal is like it feels artistic in a lot of ways, and um I kind of I I got into hardcore music by listening to subgenres of metal that I like metalcore and stuff like that. But there was just something really cool about it as a kid listening to it. I never really listened to a lot of heavier music. I listened to a lot of rock and grunge and alternative stuff like that. Avril Lavigne, that kind of like pop punk rock. But once I you heard metal for the first time in probably sixth or seventh grade, it just kind of opened my eyes to there's this whole new world because I had grown up in a really small town where nobody was really listening to metal. Everyone listened to stuff on the radio, and then I was like, oh, there's this like whole other world of music that is really appealing to me, and so yeah,
Hmm.
I kind of forgot the question, but yeah.
It's all good. Sometimes it's good to just riff. What did like, do you grew up in Portland, right? Or do you live there now?
I live in Portland. I'm 27 and I've lived here since I was just before I turned 14. So before that, I lived in Southern Oregon,
Yeah.
um, just like 5 hours south of here. And I lived in a town that was just a mile on the highway. And like I said, it was a very small town. There wasn't a lot going on. And so when I moved to Portland, I was able to start going to shows. And, my mom took me to my first Warp Tour, and she would drop me off at the Hawthorne Theater here in Portland, where all of the cool shows were happening at the time. So I think a lot of my growing up has been done in Portland, but there's definitely that root of living in a small town that I still have with me.
Yeah. What did you feel like a sense of community when you found hardcore? Something, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I had friends in school and stuff. But when I got into high school, my dynamic with my peers around me in school kind of changed. And so I was meeting a lot of people on MySpace at the time. And I had met a friend who, was kind of into the same music that I was into, but he was also transitioning into listening to hardcore. And, there was like a little bit of pop punk, like The Story So Far was just coming out with Under Soil and Dirt at the time. So, like, that was really big. And he kind of like showed me the way. And at first it was so nerve-wracking going to these shows. Like I can understand, like, these kids today, especially in the age of social media, find out about hardcore and then they go to a show and they're like, oh, like this is kind of overwhelming. But I was really like overwhelmed at the time. But once I started to get to know people and I made friends that I still have to this day, I was like, this is kind of what I feel like I've been missing.
Yeah, it's cool. I feel like there's a bit of a like generational guidance thing. Like talking to like Reba from Code Orange, talking about in Pittsburgh how they were so young and they're coming in and there's all these older dudes going, hey, listen to this, and this kind of entree into the world. What do you think? You've talked a lot about like the ethics of hardcore. What do you define as the ethic of hardcore? What's like the underlying message, do you reckon?
I mean, it's all very do it yourself. I feel like it's kind of like kill your idols, like um a band like Terror can come to town, and like Terror's like one of the biggest bands in hardcore, but like uh Scott is just like, he's one of us. And so I think that's really cool, like the sense of community, like we're all in it together. There's no hierarchy.
Hmm.
Um and I think that is missing in a lot of um scenes and genres.
Yeah, there's a real separation, and this, yeah, kill your idols is a really good way to put it, because so many music styles seem to have this real idolatry and putting people on a pedestal really far away from you. And yeah, actually Brian Garriss as well talked about from Not Loose, talked about that exact thing with Mitch Locker from Suicide Silence, that was kind of the moment where he wanted to make music looking him dead in the eye at the front of a show. What made you want to make music?
It was absolutely just being in a live music environment. I mean, I grew up watching American Idol, and that was my dream for a long time, was to be singer-songwriter, audition for American Idol, and be a pop star, or I don't know anything. I was just a kid, but then I was introduced to this world of, heavy music, and I was like, wow, this is really actually how I would like to express myself. But I think it was the energy of the live music shows that really did it for me. I can't really say that I have one particular artist, and to be honest, like um, in heavy music at the time, there weren't a lot of girls. I guess there was like I Wrestled a Bear Once would be a band that I enjoyed. And
Hmm.
so I looked up to a lot of men. Mitch Lucker was definitely one of them. I listened to your episode with Kat from Scal, and she talked about Oliver Sykes. He was absolutely one of them. Just like kind of these people that you do see as icons within the scene. I'm trying to think. I had a really good example. I guess Howard from Killswitch is probably the one where like I would say that I identify with his style, or would like to identify with his style of vocal the most, just by the way he transitions so quick, like easily between cleans and screams. And he's just got this perfect range and a sultry voice and a really great stage presence.
Yeah, your vocal range is nuts, dude. That like when you kind of bust out into the cleans and stuff, it's like, oh, she can do this too. This is sick. You know,
Thank you.
not everyone can do that. And especially in the last tune on your record, Drowning in the Silent Black, I think that's a really beautiful thing. And
Thank you.
you got a couple of like love songs or songs about longing and shit. That's
Mm-hmm.
and it's really, yeah. How do you go about writing something like that?
Well, so the ballad style I thought was like kind of different, but I'm a big Typo Negative fan. And so songs like Love You to Death, I was like, oh, you can write a ballad, but have it be metal. So um, that that was kind of eye-opening to me. But I'm a very emotional person, and I, you know, I write a lot, just like journaling or like if I'm going through something in life and my brain feels like it's on fire, the first thing that I need to do is sit down, compartmentalize my thoughts, and just get it out onto paper. And so a lot of my songs come from me journaling because I think that everything is more powerful from, and emotional when you write it in the moment. So if I'm going through something, I think of it as an opportunity like, hey, I'm going to write this down right now. I might not necessarily be thinking clearly, but I have some like really powerful things that I feel like I need to express. So put them down on paper. And then later, I'll kind of revisit it and look at that material and say, okay, now it's time to clean it up and make a song out of it.
Well, there's something about that first response that can't be more true. You can't, that first like gut response can't be more true than, we think over things and kind of distort it. There's a theory that all memories are wrong. All memories are distorted
Right.
by time and space and all that kind of stuff. Could we go through some of the lyrics on your record? Just talk about
Yeah,
it, where
absolutely.
they come from. So cowards feed and cowards bleed. Do you see kind of blood spilling when you write lyrics like that?
So I actually that song was a collaborative effort. That song and Enemies, those like more violent songs, I collaborate with Pedro who plays guitar, because he's kind of got this dark place in his brain that I can't necessarily untap myself. So I'll be like, P, I need something like real dark here, and he'll um, send me what he's thinking, and then I'll kind of go over it, add my own touch to it, and then do word placement. And so that song was mostly Pedro.
Well, it's dark and it's powerful and it's a great opener. Hell is burning inside my mind. I mean, that's pretty evocative. There's fire and
Right.
blood and brimstone. It's a great way to kind of introduce people to your world with the your first like long player.
Right.
What
Yeah,
about?
sorry, the
It's
the
okay.
hell burning inside my mind is the Hollowed by Affliction.
Yeah,
Um
that
and
is
that
true.
song I did write, because that was from a time when I really hated myself. So
It's a good thing to move it. Yes, you're right. I am looking at my notes wrong, and that is true. But yeah, I guess you don't know what I've seen. Is that referring to something inside you or something outside of you?
um mostly something inside me, like I feel like I tend to hide my suffering pretty well. I have a tendency to bottle things up and make sure that if I'm going through something, I don't really want to allow it to affect the people around me. And so that kind of comes from the place of, you don't really know what I'm going through right now, but like I'm going through it
Yeah.
essentially.
And that's a really important thing because I think self-loathing is something we all deal with, and it's kind of one
Hmm.
of the rites of passage of getting to a place where you can exist in your best way is kind of making peace with that. Did becoming a musician help with kind of finding your identity and finding this world sort of thing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I don't want to say that being in a band is my identity, but I've just worked so hard to get to this point. I knew I always wanted to work in music, and so while we were working on the band, I was working as a production manager and a buyer at a venue, and so I just kind of knew like, whatever it is in this industry, that I do, I want to make sure that I'm doing something. And so, but I mean, this is the ideal place for me to be, because I've always wanted to create and express myself in this way, and I don't really know how to express myself in any other way. So, when we were able to record the record in the summer of 2020, obviously a very difficult time for a lot of people. I had just gone through a lot of therapy, and so I feel like I was really growing as a person, after feeling stuck for such a long time. And so the writing of this record, like, and being able to perform these songs is, really like affirming to me, as far as like, you know, this is, I feel like I've like blossomed into my new self, and like being able to do this is, it's making me feel very sure of who I am.
That's a big deal. Well, I guess when you kind of have this quite like confessional, intimate, vulnerable style, you're kind of putting yourself out there, and to have people mirror back that they feel the same way has to be kind of pretty life affirming, if you will. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. People have come up to me and said, just really meaningful things about, what I've written. And it's like the first thing I want to say is I'm sorry that you can relate to it at all, because it's really, it comes from such a painful place. But I just, I'm glad that people are able to share that, that they related to it, and it just helps me feel like, oh, okay, like, we're kind of all in this together.
Yeah, well, you've been pretty embraced. Like that record's been, it's on all the lists. And I really think hardcore is one of the most exciting genres out there in terms of what's happening right now. Like there's so many different interpretations to it, and like this generation and just taking it to a whole new place.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's absolutely the most exciting thing happening right now. There's so many bands, there's so much talent. Everybody wants to be on the road and tour, which I think is awesome. And not only that, but everybody wants to go and see shows. So I think the scene is really thriving right now in a way that I've never really seen it before. I mean, I feel like in like 2012, 2013, there was kind of this burst of a lot of really awesome new bands coming through. Um, at least here in Portland,
Yeah.
we were getting shows all the time and kind of fell off for a while, but
Mm.
it's really exciting. And also the diversity in the genre, I think
Yeah.
is kind of like blazing a path for how the representation should be in all heavy music.
Do you have much of a connection with like War on Women, another band like from your area that kind of are a different? Oh, Baltimore. They're from Baltimore. Slightly different place.
I'm familiar with them.
Yeah.
There's a few bands here in Portland. There's a band called Blackwater Holy Light.
Mm.
They're all women. They play like psych rock music.
Yeah.
And then there's a band from Seattle, I want to say. They're called Pussy Mannequin, but I could be wrong. But there's tons of music like in the Northwest just being trailblazed by women right now.
It's cool. And I feel like there's a certain kind of rage that only we can feel on some level.
Right.
There's a certain kind of rage. There is a rage, and it's important. It was very singular in terms of who was expressing themselves, I think, in hardcore for a long time, and that changing is a really big deal. Okay, severing the senses. I mean, that's kind of about some of this kind of stuff, like that conflict, and yeah, that I don't know. Yeah, I mean, you talk about it. Who am I to
Yeah.
tell you? Yeah,
No, no,
yeah.
it's okay. Severing the Senses was written. There tends to be this I guess method in the movement where obviously when one person comes forward about their trauma or abuse, it kind of opens the floodgates for us to like have a conversation about it. And it happens like once every couple years, I feel,
Mm,
where there's just kind of this surge of uh, people coming forward about, individuals or experiences, and then we have an open dialogue about it. And that song specifically was me kind of from an outsider perspective, watching as people I loved all collectively like talked publicly about their experiences, for the first time with a particular person. And then it also, reminded me of some things that, I have dealt with that I have not been brave enough to speak about. And so it's just kind of like um, this song meant for um, people coming forward and exposing. I guess I come artistically, like I approach it from a different perspective, kind of like an evil perspective, as far as like, the perpetrator and whatnot. But yeah, it's just about, us talking about our experiences and
Yeah.
um
Well, it's important to have adversaries in your lyrics. I think it's powerful and stuff, and it's really important. And I think like moving forward and stuff, it has to be something we all do together. Like it can't be this kind of binary us against them kind of thing. And yeah, like I did a film about women in punk and hardcore, and just talking to like Nate from Converge, who was talking about how, man, I did some messed up stuff, like not like this, but had, talked in a way that wasn't cool. And, it's really important as you grow up to kind of take responsibility and call people out and all that sort of stuff. And I feel like that's a really good place for us all to get to,
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately it is a community. And I don't necessarily think that all people should be banished for any offense, but it's definitely, there's nuances and there's ways to deal with situations. But the only way that we're going to get through it is together and
Hmm.
with the support of, the men in our community.
Yeah, it's so important. It's a joint thing. Okay. Yeah, Cold Hearts in Bloom. Like, I guess love is part of this. Like, how has your sort of perspective shifted on what love is between when you were younger and now? Maybe you've going through some stuff.
Yeah. Well, when I was younger, transparently, I had a lot of daddy issues, dad trauma. So I kind of always longed for a companionship because of things that I was missing in my childhood.
Hmm.
And um, over the last few years, I've, learned to be less codependent and how to be happy on my own. And I've also faced some hard truths and some heartbreak. So this song was written when I was seeing someone new,
Hmm.
and it felt like a fairy tale. And um, I think we both agreed, they did and I did, that we've got some issues in our past that are pointing towards signs of us not being able to commit to this, but we'll enjoy it while it lasts. So it's like kind of a pessimistic view on a love song.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it's dark. It's dark and stuff, but this is important. You can only have one relationship that doesn't end. Like it's a reason, a season, or a lifetime, and you don't really know which one it is. And sometimes it's a reason and a season, and that's important. Like
Hmm.
I think it's really cool. Like it's interesting the way we grow through other people. And yeah, like yeah, so Fragments, obviously it's about um a dark time in your childhood and your stepfather and all this stuff. How does it feel to sing it live?
The first few times that we performed it, it felt emotional. There are some days where it still feels emotional, but I feel like just the process of writing, recording, and performing this song has really helped me heal from that experience, because it's something that I wear so openly on my sleeve, and it's a part of who I am, but I'm no longer ashamed or like scared of it.
Hmm.
And so I think that now, it's just a piece of past to me. It's not, as hurtful as it used to be.
It's cool. Like there's a thing when like trauma becomes a memory without emotional charge, or even though it's not none, it's maybe diminished in a big way. And I think finding your identity beyond that makes a big difference. And finding out who you are it's a big deal. Like it's okay. Until morning. Oh no, sorry. Yes, until morning comes. I guess what did losing someone, which I guess that's what it's about. Yeah.
Yes.
How did it sort of teach you about life, and I guess what it is to have a purpose in life? Because I feel like, you know, making music is kind of a reach towards immortality on some level? Yeah.
Wow, that's a deep question, Christine.
I have some silly questions later, but sometimes.
Okay, no, I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. Wow. That song is written about the death of a family friend, and it was at a time while I was away from home, and I've spent a lot of time away from home. So I think that to me, it's just a reminder to check in. I know it sounds, everybody says it these days, like, don't forget to check in on your loved ones. But like, seriously, like you never know when it could be the last time. And for me, I know it sounds kind of dark and twisted, but like, I haven't really looked so far into my future, like into my late 30s or anything. It's not that I don't expect to be here still, but the world is such a dark place and there's so much happening. Like, I'm kind of just like living in the moment. It's all kind of fleeting to me. So, um, just being the best version of yourself for yourself and for the people around you at all times, and um, you know, making an impact in a positive way for
Mm.
people and yourself.
Yeah, like radiating out that good stuff in this moment and not being
Exactly.
trapped by your past or like dreaming of your future, which so many of us spend a lot of time in life doing, and then wake up and go, hey, where did that go? And that's, and having that purpose and stuff, especially, and I think metal needs this kind of stuff. Metal needs this level of emotional vulnerability, you know.
Yeah,
And
right. I think so
yeah.
too. It's not that I don't relate to the heavier stuff. Sorry. It's not that I don't think the other stuff is cool, but I think that this perspective is new, and I think it's necessary.
And I think that's why people have connected with it, and metal. Yeah. I've spoken to a lot of people who are talking about how like hardcore, the reason they got into hardcore was they couldn't relate to a lot of the more like esoteric metal themes like dragons, and it's kind of a ridiculous way of summarizing it, but these more like these kind of dreamy conceptual stuff, that the hardcore had this like immediacy that was different. And I think
it's absolutely, it's real. It's real as fuck.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of fantasy in metal. You don't really see a lot of fantasy in hardcore, like, at all. So I, I'm more of a nonfiction than a fiction reader. So I guess that kind of like relates to music as well.
Yeah, totally. Like it's powerful. Who do you think who do you respect that has an ability to convey a real message? I mean, I guess on some level, a lot of people, but like someone who like stuck with you and you're like, wow, they've really like put themselves out there and are saying some real stuff.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's see. I guess it would have to be like, I guess, a band that I'm like looking around at the posters in my room, like, oh, help. Um, I guess, like, I don't know, bands like, I guess, Have Heart. Have Heart was that song Boston. That song is about like, if I remember correctly, it's been a while since I've listened to it. It's about like drunk dad, I'll never be like you kind of thing. So I really related to that. But um yeah, I would guess, I can't come up with a better answer at the moment. But that, I mean, that was also like an introductory band to hardcore for me too. So
Yeah. Well, so I guess it like hits harder
mhm.
especially when you're like there, in the moment, they're an important band, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they were huge. I mean, the first, before I was able to go to a hardcore show, I watched the Have Heart live DVD, or maybe it was like just as I was getting into hardcore. So that, I was like, are you for real? Like, these people are really like, they're really connected to it. And so it opened my eyes again to this new world.
Sick. Is Now You're Right About Cops? Or just
Yes. And
yeah. I just thought
It
of like
is.
all cops are bastards. Like I just instantly thought of that. Like the use of that word kind of instantly connects me to that whole concept and band and shit. Yeah.
Yep. Cleansing the streets with the blood of the bastards. Yeah.
Yeah.
It definitely speaks for itself. We again, 2020, there was a lot happening, especially in Portland that year. So um, that song was a lot. The Blood Lace Misery is also about that. And Andrew and I collaborated on that song. He's an abolitionist, and um, that song was originally written about ICE. And I had written that song like a year before we got to the studio, and then we just totally gutted it because we were like, "There's just a broader issue here." And Now You're Rotten, Blood Lace Misery is kind of like a two-part story, a little bit. But there's just a broader issue of policing and militarization that we wanted to address, and also colonialism as well.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Like, and I feel like the ugliness of it has come out in the last few years in like a way that never has. And people are actually calling it out and going, what is wrong here? And they haven't really solved it. And it's like, yeah, I guess structures of power and control are pretty hard to break down. It's like capitalism. It's like, how the hell do you break capitalism? It's like, it clearly doesn't work, but like, we don't have a better answer. So like,
Hmm.
what do? Like, you got to kind of, yeah.
You have to start a revolution.
Yeah.
And I think that the internet is going to be essential in that. And I think that's why, because these systems of power have been in place forever, but it's just, we're finally having open dialogue about it on the internet. And so
Yeah.
that'll be essential and
Yeah.
key for us to ever, come together. So.
What do you think it means to be an American? All I talk to is
Oh,
American. It's like,
yeah.
it's interesting.
Um,
Yeah.
I think it depends on who you talk to. I
Yeah.
think everyone, is different. But to be an American, I feel like is a little shameful, honestly. There's a lot of proud patriots out there, but this country has caused an awful lot of harm all over the world and is still to this day causing a lot of harm. And I don't really believe that we have a free and fair democracy. And so I think that to be an American, it depends on who you're talking to, but it's on whether or not you're buying the shit that they're feeding you, essentially.
Yeah. And that's important. And I mean, there is, I guess, a firm belief in the world that about 30% of Americans are completely insane. And I don't think it's wrong. About 30%, maybe 20. That there's
So you're
definitely a vein of goddamn insanity, dude. Like it's
yeah, you're
it's
telling me there's a 1 in 3 chance that I'm insane.
yeah, no, I think you're solid. I think you put enough out there in the world that you're definitely part of the 70-80%. Like that's I don't think it's arguable. Like, yeah, I think there's a level of awareness and looking out and looking in there that's like real. This has gotten heavy, but like, I
Yeah,
think
I promise we're
sorry.
fun people.
Yeah, no, okay. Well, I guess we'll get to the last thing, which is like Enemies in Red. Is this kind of heading down a similar path or a different?
Um, Yeah, that song is
No.
so vague. I feel like for once we finally left something up for interpretation, and it's
Yeah.
that song. It's just gory. It's a depiction of horror,
Hmm.
and it's just you think about I'm not like, despite my lyrics, I'm not like the most hateful person. But you think about that one person, your number one enemy, and it's just like a fantasy as far as like you know revenge, essentially.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of darkness, and we will get to a silly question that comes from there. And okay, while I don't often go on a whole lyrical thread, but I kind of thought it would be interesting because I like your lyrics. And
Thank you.
this is like a moment in time for you and your band, like putting out, and a first like album kind of defines a band so much that it's sort of an entry to the world.
Right. And we knew
Yeah.
that pressure was going to be on us, and so we knew we had to deliver, but nobody is a bigger critic to us than ourselves. So I feel like we do pretty well under pressure in those moments too.
Yeah. And what about Brian Garriss? Because he was he on that song as well?
He
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
So initially I was on A Serpent's Touch on A Different Shade of Blue. And he just kind of hit me up out of the blue and asked me to do that song. And it was kind of like a pinch me moment because we were a new band at the time. I think we had just had a demo, maybe a split out. And
Mm.
so, it was really cool to be recognized by a peer, that's accomplishing so much and has since accomplished so much. And so that's how it started. But then, we had Enemies in Red written and we were talking about doing a feature for it. And then we were like, well, we could like ask Bryan if he wants to trade, and he was totally down and he killed it. So
Yeah, totally. And man, Knock Loose is doing amazing crap, like the not crap, amazing stuff. And like the last album is just mental. And I think they are another band that do that thing, that metal hardcore thing really, really, really well. Which is
yeah,
exciting.
I absolutely love that last EP they did. It's brilliant.
Yeah, it's mental. And that's okay, we're gonna end this because we can't like leave a song. Like we gotta like Drowning the Silent Back. I guess it feels like about longing and stuff. Who do you think does longing real well in music?
Longing.
I mean, Typo, you could kind of argue
Yeah,
something mental, like
that was like the first thing that came to my mind. His Typo Negative, Love You to Death, and he's just like, I don't know. I find that he probably does it best. But Kill Switch, I know we already talked about Kill
Mm,
Switch a little bit, but I feel like some of their songs, are pretty emotional on that level.
mm.
Um, yeah, and I think there's a few metalcore bands that talk about longing well.
Yeah, and it's good. It's important. Okay, let's get to some silly questions. First movie that scared you in a good way.
The Ring. No hesitation. That movie still scares me.
It's heavy. It's well, you get into horror, man. There's horror in that, all that stuff. Okay. Okay, infamous firsts. So first kiss.
Don't remember it.
Yeah.
Which I feel bad about, but I really don't. I think it happened at school.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't remember who it was, and I feel like, yeah,
Yeah.
whatever.
What about your first show? The first show
That
you
I
ever
attended.
played? Yeah, attended and played.
Um, First show I ever attended, hard to say because my mom took me to some shows when I was a kid,
Hmm.
but it was like Pink Martini. Are you familiar with that band? Um, Stuff like that. And then first show I went to here in Portland, by myself was Never Shout Never. I was 14 years old and I was obsessed with him at the time, and he was vegetarian and I wanted to be vegetarian so bad, so I had looked up to him. And then the first show we had played was well, it was the first show I played with my older band. And we just played this venue in Portland called Blackwater Bar that's like a vegan punk venue. And that was cool. And honestly, I don't remember the first show Dying Wish played. I think it was with Knocked Loose, honestly, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah, that's sick. Well, it's yeah, the vegan thing is a big deal. Have you ever heard of Obscene Extreme?
No.
Okay, so that's a pure grindcore festival run in the Czech Republic by a dude who is literally the happiest person I've ever seen. And he does it completely no sponsors, 100% vegan. Like he books like grindcore bands from every continent, like Africa, Vietnam, like just absolutely insane levels of that. And he has a kid called Quentin Tarantino. So just side
Wow.
note, just side note.
I would like to meet this person.
Yeah, no, you really, Kobe, yeah, like that's a really random aside, but yeah, is that something you're hella passionate about, like that kind of part of I mean, your Instagram name kind of says that.
Yeah. I've been vegan for quite some time and I've been really passionate about it. Honestly, it started with the ethical treatment of animals.
Hmm.
And I still feel that way.
Hmm.
But there's just so many reasons for me to be vegan that it really outweighs not being vegan. But I used to be a lot more into it, but I'm realizing that being or just veganism in general intersects with so many other issues in the world that I feel much more passionate about. So
Yeah.
I feel like it's just one thing that I can be doing, on a personal level to make an impact. But I think that a lot of the impact, that needs to be made in the world doesn't necessarily need to come from a consumer level at this point.
Yeah, dude.
But that's a very deep conversation.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I don't mean to I have gotten like mad deep, but like sometimes, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of
I have a
silly.
tendency to do that.
Yeah, I don't like, I'm into it. Like, let's talk about real shit. Like, okay, if you had to be an animal, what would it be?
Uh, Probably an elephant.
Yeah.
They are my favorite and they always seem so happy and they're really big on family. Um, and so I've just always loved them and they maybe it's just because I'm really always kind of looking for elephant content, but I feel like they have really funny personalities and they're very, very smart.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I just think they're like kind of fun, cheeky animals, but they're also huge and not to be messed with.
Yeah. And I think they like mate for life and crap. I think so. I think they,
Yeah.
and that's cool. I like that you're seeking out elephant content. Do you have like a secret talent or like a way you spend your time in your spare time that's kind of completely different to music?
A secret talent.
Hmm.
Not really. Honestly, the only thing I've ever really been good at is singing. And so that's why I kind of have just done that because I'm not necessarily the kind of person to, um, I don't have a ton of patience. So if I'm not good at something right off the bat, then I won't really do it. But I have a huge love for basketball.
Yeah.
And so I'm very invested in the NBA and I do like to play. I played when I was a kid, but I don't practice that much, so I'm not super good at it. But I would say that's probably like another big part of my personality is basketball.
What about what would your band be as an animal? Like you guys as a collective force?
Probably monkeys. Just a bunch of crazy monkeys running around, always telling jokes. Um, always uh lively, I
Yeah.
guess.
Have you ever pulled a ridiculous prank on tour? Or
Uh
one?
I feel like they're gonna hate that I said monkeys, but
Yeah.
they might not.
I'll get to it.
They play pranks on me all the time. Uh Constantly. One time they played a prank on me that Jeff's dog died and he had to go home. And then they played a prank on me when we were in Boston that Pedro got arrested for not paying for the train. And oh, there's so many good ones. Oh, Jeff put my shoes in the fridge, just stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm like kind of an easy target, so I feel like they pick on me quite a
Well,
bit.
that's a good, it's a good it's a good time. Okay, word association, danger.
Heights.
Monkey.
What about a monkey?
Like word association, what's the first thing you think of with monkey? I mean, maybe your band.
uh yeah, just I don't know. Sam, he always like I feel like he always has a lot of like orangutan content, but that's like an ape. Yeah, probably my band since we were just talking about how
It's
I
true.
feel like we relate to monkeys. Yeah.
Yeah, metal.
Um, Extreme, I guess. That's
Yeah.
like the first thing that comes to mind.
Well, that's good. Okay, your musical Mount Rushmore, if you had four like faces carved into stone, what would they be?
Okay, does it have to be metal?
Absolutely.
Because
I've heard some
okay, I listen.
random ones, dude. Like the dude from Tool was like Joni Mitchell. That's
Okay.
random. And some niche jazz dude that no one would understand. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
My personal Mount Rushmore, I listen to a lot of like pop and hip hop.
Mm.
Um, I would say SZA is up there. She's like my favorite. And then Kendrick Lamar, I think he's fantastic. I think he's the greatest rapper that I've seen in my lifetime. Who else? Um, really feel like we should put Peter Steele on there. I feel like I talk about him so much, especially like when it comes to Revolver content, but Peter Steele has to be up there. I just think that he was so iconic and there's been nobody really like him. And then I feel like Jamie Jost is gonna be on there.
He's a whole way. He's a whole force of nature.
Right.
Yeah, I'd like to see all those guys together, maybe writing a song. I mean, you got like bass and you got 3 vocalists and you're 4, and I can't add up, but you got a bunch of vocalists and good storytellers. And yes, we do go down a whole typo negative theme. I think we did like a month of typo negative content, and there was plenty. I really think October Rust on repeat like defined part of my teenage years and stuff, and you can't mess with that, man. Like you can't mess with it. Okay.
Yeah.
Final question. 5 songs that change your life.
Oh, okay. So my first answer is very weird, and it's gonna be a deep cut by the Chicks, and it's a song called Travelin' Soldier. This song is written about it's a love story perspective from a girl who like works at a diner who meets a soldier who's going away to Vietnam, and they fall in love, and then she finds out that he passed away during a football game when they said the names of the past. And so it's just like, it's this whole story told about that. And I really grew up loving the Chicks a lot. That's like a top 10 for me.
Yeah.
And so it was the first real example of like the singer songwriter that I really loved. Another one would be probably Empty Promises by Hatebreed, just because it's the opener for Satisfaction. And when you hear the da 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 da, I was just like, I'm in. And from that moment, I have chills right now talking about it. From that moment, I was sold on what's now one of my favorite bands. Let's see. The song Anthem for Redemption by Foundation. It has this really, really awesome like build up chanty part into a breakdown that I just feel like has never been done better. And that band was like a really big band in my youth for me. 2 more. Probably Just a Girl by No Doubt. For obvious reasons, I think that song really speaks to a lot of women who like rock music.
Yeah.
And my last one, it's a song. 5 songs that change your life. Let's see. I gotta go with a Deftones song because I didn't really get into Deftones until I was in my mid-20s, and I think that it didn't really click for me until then. But the song that really sold me, and I feel like this is such a niche, or like not a niche, it's a very cliche song, but the song Sex Tape by Deftones.
I got into Deftones late, and then I was like, where have you been all my life? Like I had a moment. I can relate to that, and I don't know why. I was just like, oh, this is ridiculous. Why haven't I been there? Okay, actually, final question. Have you ever expressed your fandom in an absolutely ridiculous way? Like in terms of how you dress, or like papering your walls in ridiculous things, or like how you,
Yes.
physically, yeah.
Yeah, when I was like 14, I would have my mom buy me alternative press magazines, and then I would rip them apart and just cover my whole wall next to my bed with all of these bands that I liked. I guess that would be it. I mean, I don't know. I feel like I would probably like if I try to think that there's not many artists if I met that I would like freak out. I try to keep a lot of my fandom at bay, but I am kind of obsessive about music in a lot of ways.
Okay, actually, I just realized we really need to talk about something, which is the Limp Bizkit tour. And you and Kat from Scale, like, holy crap. Like that, I think that was one of the coolest moves they've made in bringing you guys along and kind of exposing you to a new audience. What was memorable about this, and how did it feel to like get booked on this tour?
Well, first getting booked on it, I kind of just like really, I kept saying it's not real until we show up and we load in and we, get on that stage and do a sound check. So it was just unreal. I'm sure Kat said the same thing, but as far as like highlights of that tour, just playing consistently to more people than we've ever played to before, and just looking at a sea of people, and sometimes they weren't quite into it, but I could just tell from the way that the energy was coming from the crowd that we converted so many people in that crowd to Dying Wish fans. And it was just really, it felt like kind of like a coming of age moment in a way for the band and for us as people, like, oh wow, like this is, we're actually you know professionally doing music now.
Yeah. Did you play Madison Square Garden?
We did not.
You did not.
No.
I just had to double check because I know you did. Did you do different legs of the tour and stuff? Yeah.
Yeah. So we did a tour with Code Orange previously before that. And then we did about a week with the band from the UK called Higher Power. And then we met up with Limp Bizkit. So we were on tour for 2 months straight. And, we were tired by the time we met up with Limp Bizkit, but it was the best way for us to end a tour, playing 20 minutes, catering all day, sound check. The crew was taking care of us every day, helping us load out. And so, it was just, yeah, it was great.
Sick. Well, dude, go forth and shred. Go forth and like kick ass and stuff. It's good to have you in this world. It's good to have you around.
Thank you.
It's bitching, and yeah, you guys are gonna do crazy ass things, and it's rad. So yes, thank you for joining us. Thanks for joining us, everyone, for the Revolver Fan First podcast. It's great to have you here, and we will be back next week.